Dave Jennings lives in Los Angeles, USA, and is a member of the Christadelphian Church or Ecclesia that meets at Semi Hills. Dave is currently the editor of the Tidings Magazine, a Christadelphian Magazine and online publication. He joins Wilderness Conversations to discuss the current activities and the exciting new opportunities that are being developed for the furtherance of the gospel message. Dave, thanks very much for joining Wilderness Conversations.
Yes, thanks for having me.
I'm really excited to hear a bit more about the Tidings, but before we get into that, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure, thank you. Well, I just passed in December the big 7-0, so I've entered into the 70 zone. I grew up a Christadelphian. My mother learned about the truth in rural Arkansas in 1942 when she was 12, and she was invited to go to a Bible school. She had never heard of the Christadelphians, wasn't really attending a church, and her friends said, yes, come with me to the Arkansas Bible School. My mom was kind of interested. She said, what do they do there? And she says, well, they tell great ghost stories there at night. Right. So my mom was all in when she heard that. But when she got to the Bible school, she really was impressed with the way that the Christadelphians were looking passages up in their Bible, and the messages seemed to make sense. This is to a 12-year-old girl. And she went home and talked to her mom, and that's really where my story becomes, gets started. It's interesting to know that the little girl that talked to my mom actually never became a Christadelphian. So I know where that conversation happened in this rural part of Arkansas, and I've always felt that there's just no doubt that the angels were involved in that. So, so anyway, that's how I got to be a Christadelphian. My dad was not a Christadelphian. He met my mom when she transferred to work out in Los Angeles and was living with some Christadelphian sisters out here. And they were working in the same building, and magic happened in the coffee shop. So they got together and were married in 1953, and I came around in 1954. So I was unamended for the first 16 years, and my family, we all moved to the Pomona Central meeting in 1970 when I was 16. And I've been Central the whole time. I was baptized as a member of the Pomona Ecclesia. That's where I met my wife. She was in my Sunday school, my CYC class. And in January 17th of 1976, we were married. So we're coming up on 50 years. We have 3 children, all grown now, and 4 grandchildren. So we've lived most of our life in Southern California. We lived on the East Coast for about 5 years when I got transferred with my work, and then a year in Texas before we got back to California. We've been back in California since 1992.
I was interested in some of your early experiences, perhaps as a teenager in the truth. What were some of the motivating experiences that made you accept the gospel? What was important to you back then?
Well, thank you. First of all, I was very influenced by my mother and my grandmother. I feel like right. Timothy, as we read about him. Both very faithful people. They were voracious readers. And I think just to go a step further, there was always a optimistic view of other people that I heard from them. Always looking for the good. Interestingly, when I married my wife, she has a similar trait about her, which must be what I need. So, right. So it's very helpful. But I would say the first thing was very strong influences by my mom and my grandmother and my father. Then beyond that, when I moved to from the small unamended ecclesia that I was in Los Angeles at age 16 to what was in the Southern California area, one of the larger ecclesias. I was almost overwhelmed because there were so many young people that I could meet with, not only weekly at CYC, but for gatherings that we would have. Those kind of things really was never part of my experience prior to that. So that was a wonderful experience, meeting a lot of young people that were my age that were serious about their beliefs. And then finally, after baptism, both my wife and I, we were engaged at that point, went on Truth Corps here in the United States. And we had the opportunity to visit probably 5 to 6 ecclesias and to do active preaching in those areas. I think that was, for me, probably the most impactful experience I had.
I've heard of Truth Core. Can you tell us a bit more about it? Because I don't really know what it is.
Sure. So Truth Corps probably was established about 1972. It was initially only done down in Latin America and particularly in Panama, but then moved up to the US about 1973, 74 timeframe. I went on along with my wife, we went on in 1975. It's a group of, oftentimes we had two groups, and they were groups of 6 to 8 young people. They had to be baptized and preferably out of high school. And we would go to ecclesias that would host us, and what we would do is preach in the neighborhoods. And it would include everything from going door to door, doing surveys, handing out leaflets to invite people to lectures, and then also doing work within the ecclesias. And that's been it's today, and it was then too. It's all been sponsored by the Christadelphian Bible Mission of the Americas, and it's impacted literally hundreds of people over the years.
Sounds amazing.
It was quite an experience. You know, it's one thing to go to classes to learn how to preach. It's another one when you knock on the door and you
Yeah.
actually have to speak about your beliefs.
Did you get some preparation, some training, and some help?
Yeah, so it's interesting. We did have some pre-work that we had to do, which was somewhat helpful. We did a lot of Bible marking with the idea that uh, if we were to get into a conversation, having main references would be really helpful. And they were. But what was interesting for me was to find out that most of the time, even though I felt a great sense of insecurity about could I answer most of the questions, most of the time, we Christadelphians probably come from a pretty good level of knowledge about the Bible.
Yeah.
And I found it to be helpful to me to be able to just try it out. I can share one story briefly with you. When we were in the Toronto area on Truth Corps, there was a place called Allen Gardens. And this is where brethren like Ron Abel and Frank Abel and Colin Badger and others would go, and they would do open air preaching. And so we went down there. At this point I was about 20 years old, and I remember one of the events was going on, and then afterwards there was discussion after the talk was given by a Christadelphian. And I remember Frank Abel pushing me in the back over towards this one man. And I didn't know anything about this man. He was wearing a suit with I still remember a white tie, and he had a nice hat on. And so we started talking, and the topic that had been talked about was the issue of where sin comes from. And so I have my chain references, and I'm going through those chain references. And I got to Mark 7, and I thought I'd made my point. And then the man says, where you want to go next is to this verse.
Right.
And so he was right, by the way. And so afterwards, I found out that his name was called Mr. Organization because he knew the Christadelphian organization inside and out. And Frank knew what he was doing when that happened. So,
And Frank had already had the discussion. He was giving you a go.
oh, yeah, many times. Yes, many times.
Sounds very encouraging. It's just a reminder of just how important it is for the youth activities that continue down to today. And I
Absolutely.
guess we also, in saying that, think of those who don't have the opportunity as well. So
Right.
how we can help those out as well.
I will just add this. Faith is built outside the boat. You know, when Peter gets out and walks on the water, that's when real faith is built. And for me, I can just say that actually putting what your beliefs are into action,
Hmm.
that's really where I felt my own faith was built.
That's an interesting thought. I hadn't thought of that. So obviously, the Truth Core is an example of that.
Yes.
Um, do you have anything else in mind? In what other ways do we step outside the boat?
Found, I'm sure everybody else did that was involved with it, that the Bible reading seminars, which started about 1993,
Yeah.
uh, was just it was a watershed event for me and for a lot of Christadelphians because, you know, we would for years put on Bible lectures, which would be somewhat publicized and sometimes not publicized. And we were in a habit of expecting nobody to show. Uh,
Yeah.
and then we introduced the seminars. And I remember the very first seminar in the Pomona Ecclesia. We advertised in the paper, nice big advertisements. And we had a room that would hold 75 people. And we had 375 people who registered. And we
Wow.
had to really scramble. But we got to the point where, for at least 10 to 15 years, we had, you know, groups of 100 people or so that would come to the seminars and were intent on learning about the Bible.
A true watershed moment. During these years of bringing up your family, what sort of activities did you get involved with in the ecclesia for yourself?
Well, I was Sunday school superintendent in my younger days, and I really enjoyed that. When I was about 25, I began my time as an arranging board member, first in the Pomona Ecclesia. I was transferred with my work to uh, work in central New Jersey, and we lived in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, and I was there on their AB and then later their recording brother. After a year coming back in Texas, members of the Wichita Falls Ecclesia, we finally came back to Pomona. Uh, Pomona is about 30 miles east of Los Angeles and was the recording brother there on the Arranging Brothers group, involved heavily with preaching. And then we moved to the Simi Valley, which is actually north of Los Angeles, in 2018, and we've been members of, first of all, Verdugo Hills, and now we're members of the Simi Hills Ecclesia. Um, Beyond the ecclesial events, what's been very impactful to me have been involvement in Bible mission.
Okay.
I've been involved with Bible mission for really probably since the mid 1980s, which has been really very helpful. And then most recently, the Tidings.
Bible mission. Did you have a particular area that you went to regularly?
At the end, I ran Truth Corps for a number of years.
Okay.
Also did their publicity for a while. But Mexico is the area that myself and brother David Lloyd, we together were the link brethren for that country.
Okay.
David and Jerry Ann are wonderful brothers and sisters, and working with him in Mexico was just terrific. Was very We were very pleased that we were able to get two ecclesias established in the Guadalajara area,
Okay.
and they're still going strong.
Wow, that's fantastic. In the meantime, obviously, you're earning a living. What was your career choice?
Yeah, so uh, I started in the insurance business right out of college because um, Well, largely because I needed a job, and I started in operations for Allstate Insurance Company. Did that for 5 years. My heart really wasn't in insurance, to be perfectly honest. I joined Johnson and Johnson in 1981,
So the
and
medical company.
yes, and so I really did enjoy working for J&J. I worked for them for 25 years, most of the time in human resources. I was vice president of human resources for a few of their subsidiaries. Left J&J in 2006 after 25 years, and then worked for a couple of companies. The most recent one before I retired was a medical device company that makes a device that's used for aneurysms in the aorta, and was head of human resources for that public company. So I had a nice career, plenty of responsibility, and lots of work. But it was one that gave stability to my family, which I'm very appreciative.
Yeah. It begs the question, slightly off topic, I suppose, but human resources. Would you recommend it as a career? And I wonder whether it would be tougher today than it was back then.
Well, that's a good question. Um, Human resources today is different in some ways. Uh,
The DEI programs and so on tend to fall under the heading of human resource. And although
right,
DEI, I think, in its base sense, we could probably accept, but
right.
there's a lot of inferences and so on, which I think most of us would find hard to promote.
Well, I found that what human resources and being a Christadelphian in human resources, what was the good fit part was that we have a certain view about the way to handle conflict. And I cannot tell you how often I had to counsel people who would come into my office wanting to complain about their boss or some event, and how many times what my counsel was to them is that they needed to go back and talk to that person to actually have it. Sometimes they had to facilitate it. Other times it was just to kind of ensure that the meeting happened. And the breakdown that exists today in people being able to handle conflict.
Right.
Christadelphians, we know what that process needs to be. Uh, there were times where the line was kind of close and you had to kind of straddle, on the right side of it. I remember being expected to, at one time, come supportive of a initiative that was being done by one of our diversity groups, and they were basically wanting us to say that this particular lifestyle was acceptable and we should celebrate it. And I worked in a company that allowed me to be able to personally step back from that.
Right.
Um, so, it's interesting. I know we have a lot of Christadelphians that do work in human resources. The majority of it is supporting the business, but there are
Yeah.
times where human resources requires you to stand tall on what you believe. Uh,
And maybe that's a good thing.
yeah, yeah, I think so. It, but when I look back at it, most of the time, it wasn't really a moral or ethical dilemma. Uh, it was more about how much of my time and my mind am I going to give to my business,
Yeah.
because it's so invasive.
I guess that's the challenge we all face, particularly those in the corporate world.
Right. Right.
I guess some have got jobs where they're somewhat tactical, and you walk away and there's nothing more you can do. But the jobs that involve that thinking and strategy and so on, it's easy to take it home and keep thinking about it.
Well, that's right. I remember being at the Idlewild Bible School in the middle of the week, having a wonderful time. My mind was just kind of detoxing, right? And I got a call from my boss telling me about a major problem that we were going to have to be involved with, and it just destroyed the rest of the week for me. And I am very thankful to be out of that, to be honest with you.
I was curious when I saw your CV, if you like. So I've been in medical all my life as well. So per chance, but
Oh,
I've been in more engineering operations.
but I always felt that the one thing about medical is, is you have to pick an industry in these cases. And I always felt that medical was a positive one
Yeah,
because we were truly trying to help people with their lives. And the devices, the very first company I worked with Johnson and Johnson was an intraocular lens company at the inception of intraocular lenses. And so
mm,
cataracts that were people were having removed were now being replaced with artificial lenses, and it was changing their lives.
yeah,
And so I always felt good about those things.
yeah. It's a great industry to be involved in, and ever changing. There's
Yeah,
there's never a dull moment.
no,
Always things coming on the horizon.
right.
And to be fair, there's always money for it, right? So people will spend money on their health, where even in difficult times when there's perhaps not money for other things.
That's right.
So it's not a bad industry to get involved in.
Right.
Well, I'm interested in the tidings, and
Right.
I must confess, the tidings I don't know a lot about. So feel free to give us as much information as you can. How did you get involved? And I guess what are the objectives of the tidings? And should I call it the Tidings Magazine? Because you're much more than a magazine these days, of course.
Right. Well, that's a good question. Well, first of all, it's the Christadelphian Tidings. That's the name that we go with. It's actually the Christadelphian Tidings of the Kingdom of God is the full
Right.
title, but we just go with
Okay.
tidings most of the time now. Um, it was begun in 1939 in the ecclesia that I used to belong to in Pomona. My dad still is in the Pomona ecclesia. He'll be 97 this year, and he's still in that
Wow.
ecclesia. I mean, in that ecclesia, they were a Berean ecclesia at that point, and they started it uh, as basically a Sunday school newsletter. They called it the Junior Berean, and so it went from 1939, from being a Berean magazine to in the 1950s, kind of changing to the Tidings. And so the Tidings has been a North American fraternal magazine for most of its time. And it's still to this day, the focus of what we're doing is to support the North American brothers and sisters. But the world changed whenever we went to when we went online. And I can talk about that in a moment. The way I got involved, I had been I'd submitted some articles over the past years. I helped to do one of the special issues, but when I retired in January of 2019, as we've been talking about what it's like in the corporate world, I'd been working, the 55 to 65 hour weeks for quite a while, and I was pretty worn out. And when I retired, I went from 100 miles an hour to zero.
Yeah.
And it was a little staggering, to be honest. I wondered what I was going to do, I now had a situation where I didn't have to worry about money, and now I could really spend my time working for the Lord however He felt right. And so I started praying about this in January, and January came and went. February almost came and went, and we had the Palm Springs Christadelphian Bible School that was held at the end of February, uh, which is a wonderful school. It's largely older brothers and sisters that go there. I guess I was one by then. So this would have been 2019. And I go out there, and then two brothers who are at the school say to me, "Hey, we'd like to take you to lunch today." So I've always usually found that
That
there's
was
no such
nice.
thing as a free lunch, right?
Yeah.
And they mentioned to me, they said, well, we're thinking maybe you might be interested in joining the Tidings. And I thought, well, that's interesting as maybe like a committee member. But they said, no, we're interested in you being the editor for the magazine.
Mm.
And I was kind of shocked, to be honest. I didn't really think of myself in that role. Writing always came kind of easy to me. But the more they described the needs of the job, the more I said, I feel like I can leverage some of my experiences that I've had. So I started in 2019 on the committee, really getting a lot of the infrastructure set up. So the Tidings in 2019, I started looking at subscriptions and demographics, and it was largely an aging subscription base.
Mm.
Um, all of it was in hard copy. Everybody was getting their monthly tidings that was being mailed to them. There was no online presence, no significant online presence, and no social media presence. So all that I worked on with a team to get a website established, social media established, and to get prepared to start as the editor in early 2020. And what we really wanted to do was to make the tidings something that is practical, that is, how shall I say, for the common brother and sister,
Yeah.
uh, and really focuses on life application. That to us, we felt was essential. And by having it available on smartphones and on the internet and so forth, we had hoped to be able to more broadly appeal to younger readers also. So that's where we got started in 2020. And just as I got started, COVID hit.
Yeah.
And it actually, while it was a really bad time in a lot of ways, it was the glory days for being able to have an online presence. And so we were able to really jumpstart a lot of our work that way.
What's the governance of the tidings? Is there, do you have a paid committee, or are they all volunteers? And how do you get content?
Thank you. First of all, the committee is all volunteers, and the committee is made up of about 12 or 13 brothers and sisters, all here in North America, though we may expand. And they make up an advisory group. We meet 4 times a year, 3 times by Zoom, and once face to face. And this is a group that I've used a number of times for dealing with some difficult issues that we faced. Um, we, my work is subject to their review. If they feel that I'm going in the wrong direction, they'll let me know. But it's been a group that has been very helpful in sort of charting direction particularly on some of the more challenging topics that we faced. But otherwise, there are no compensated people at this
Mm.
moment. There's no compensated people in the Christadelphian Tidings.
And the content is volunteers giving you articles and so on.
So the way this works is we have a certain number of categories in every one of our magazines. So as I look at it, we have I write an editorial every month, but then there's a category on life application, one on exhortations, another one on Bible studies, which is more expositional, another
Hmm.
one on first principles, and then one on preaching and teaching. And each of those, I have a uh, section editor who is out there grabbing content from people that they know. And I align with those section editors on what we want to try to cover. And then they'll do a lot of the legwork and bring in the content in.
For those who are interested in having a look, where would you find the tidings?
They can go to tidings.org. Tidings.org is the website. The on social media, we're on uh, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter or X, and all under Christadelphian Tidings.
Hmm. At the moment, it's mainly, well, traditionally it's been a magazine, as you say, but then you move to online. Whereabouts are you heading, and what are some of the things you're working on? And I noticed you had almost a separate website for Ecclesia Safe, and that looked like an enormous amount of work and material had gone into that.
Right, right. Well, the first of all, the response that we have to the Christadelphian Tidings, uh, the actual hard copies that we have declined
Yeah.
because they can now get it much faster and cheaper online, and they can get it on their smartphone and so forth. They can do so by registering or doing a subscription. But we also post all the content on social media, or they can go to the website and read the magazine in its entirety and all the archives. So, what's been interesting to me about this is because we're on the World Wide Web, uh, our readership is just about 50% North America and 50% outside of North America now. So this is a challenge for us to continue to be a North American magazine, but also to speak to issues that may be of interest to other places.
Mm.
So, interestingly, our number two country for readership is Australia,
Right.
followed by the UK, then Canada, then I think it goes to the Philippines, and then Nigeria. So,
Wow.
there's a lot of global readership that's going on. We would love to have more global participation with articles being submitted, et cetera. Um, the so there's two big projects I would talk about that have come out of the tidings, which are a little different than a magazine. So one of them you mentioned, which is Ecclesia Safe. Ecclesia Safe is a program that we developed. It's kind of a sub-branding for us. And what it is it has an umbrella of underneath the umbrella is a number of issues that we want to discuss within the Christadelphian body and provide resources for. The very first one, which was a big one here in North America, was that I have to say, probably most of our ecclesias were not really in compliance with the laws of the land, regard the states and the federal, with regard to things like child abuse
Yeah.
and reporting and all the other aspects of it. So we took that one on first. We had we had several groups working side by side, one on policy, one on kind of education, and another one on material development. So we had these three groups working together, and I think it was March 2022 that we launched that program. And it's really intended to help ecclesias understand what the issue is, have some resources for training their own people about this, and then policies and just general resources for them. So we felt that that was one that would be a service to ecclesias. The second one we've taken on is this issue of domestic violence. And in this one, we decided the first iteration would be to work with Brother Andrew and Sister Julie Weller. They had written a book before dealing with this issue, and so we worked with them in a kind of a rewrite for this new book, which is called Breaking the Cycle. And it's a really good book, highly recommended for ecclesias to read through it. And we hope to add more material and resources after that. And there's a number of other topics after that, everything from dealing with pornography, dealing with elder abuse, um, and I can go on, but in other words, that's a sub-brand of material.
So are those other subjects currently available on that site?
Those other subjects are yet to be developed.
Right. So there's some of the other, yeah. So that's your future
Yeah.
direction there.
The
Yep.
only two that are on there now are the one for preventing child abuse, and the second one, which is about domestic violence.
Okay.
So that's the first, that kicked off probably in 2021, and uh, we've had we've had reasonable uptake in the materials, but I think it's at least brought it so that ecclesias know about it and know that there's
Yeah.
a need for them to respond.
As much as you say, oh, it'd be great for people to be proactive and read through it,
Yes.
and that's great. Typically, though, you'll find people probably go to the material when they need it, when there's a need. Where can we go? Where can we get some help?
Well, that's right. It would be best to be proactive here. There's no doubt about that. And the fact is that states within the United States and provinces in Canada are getting more interested in what's happening within churches. There's been a
Right.
lot of churches that have had major blemishes
Yeah.
because of their failure to handle these things right. The second program, which I'm really excited about, came as a discussion between ourselves, the Christadelphian Magazine in the UK, and the Glad Tidings, which is also out of the UK. We got together a year ago, a little over a year ago, and said, you know, the vast majority of Christadelphians today don't speak English.
Right.
There are more non-English speaking Christadelphians than there are English speaking Christadelphians, and we're not providing anything for them in their language. So what we thought about is it possible that we could come up with a shared magazine, largely reusing some of our existing material and make that available in different languages? And so that's the project that we undertook. And at this particular point, we have, I think it's 8 languages that we're now providing. So we have right now we have the magazine available in English, French, Farsi, Swahili, Dutch, Filipino, and we're about to add Urdu and Chichewa. So that's 8 languages altogether. And these are electronic only, and they're sent by email, they're sent by WhatsApp, and people in any of these countries can have access to these magazines. And the process is we get 2 articles from the Tidings, 2 articles from the Christadelphian, and 2 articles also from Glad Tidings, and one additional article, which is from the Bible Mission in the UK. And what we're doing is we're taking that material, we're putting it through an electronic translation process, which gives, depending on the language, pretty good, accurate translation. And then we have a host of people who are native speakers who also know English, and they are going through and making the edits to make sure that the language is appropriate, it's biblical
Right.
language.
Yep.
And then they send it back to us, and we release this on a monthly basis. So it's to me, this is an exciting thing because we're actually having the opportunity to provide in their own languages uh, material that's exhortational, expositional, um, and some that is what you might call almost like preaching material, because we know that there are many people who aren't Christadelphians that read these magazines too.
Yeah.
So that's been going for just over a year now, and we're at 8 languages, and our hope is to get to about 10 by the end of the year.
Can we go online and download that magazine, or can you subscribe to it and it'll be sent to you? What are the options there?
Yes, you have all those options. So you can go to
Right.
it's www.thehighcalling.net, And if you go to that website, all the languages are there. You click on the language, you can read that month's magazine, and you can go and look at the archives also. But what we do is we send out the materials to a wide number of places. First of all, we put it on social media. We send it to WhatsApp groups. We send it to Bible mission groups. And then oftentimes the social media will take from these different countries will take that material and post it on their own social media. So it's really distributed in a whole bunch of ways. Distribution is the number one challenge.
Yeah, it's a fascinating initiative. Is it being done largely with the same group that are doing the tidings, or is it sort of a separate group that are running with this? Because it sounds like a lot of work too.
Well, it's being done in collaboration between the three groups. So
Yeah,
Brother Christopher Parkin is the editor for Glad Tidings, and he sends me articles to consider for each month. Um, and then Mark Vincent is the editor for the Christadelphian Magazine. He and Jeremy will send me articles from there, and then we pick a couple out from the Tidings. Right now, the role of putting them together,
yeah.
uh, editing them together, and so forth, that is falling to the Tidings Magazine. But it's a collaborative effort. And then we have a contracted brother who does a great job by getting the translation done, working with the Christadelphians around the world that are the editors, and putting together the final product.
That's fantastic. I'm excited to hear about that. I think that'll go well and be really helpful.
I hope so.
Do you know much about the demographics of the tiding? Now, obviously getting maybe more difficult now that you're online. I'm not sure to know who you're reaching and in the group in your publication.
Right. Well, actually, we do have pretty good stats on this. When it comes to the hard copy is a shrinking part of our existence right now.
How many do you send out?
Probably 400,
Yeah. Okay.
probably 400, and that's mainly in North America. And frankly, even maybe I'm in that category now, but usually it's an older customer. And I like getting a hard copy. I enjoy getting that hard copy. But most people are getting it now online as a digital copy. And what we find is that about 60% of our readers are reading it on their phone,
Yeah.
which was really important learning for us. We know that in terms of males and females, this we have better stats on this when we get to social media. On social media, about 65% uh, is usually female, and it tends to be that it's an interesting demographic. Younger younger people, the breakout between men and women who are reading is pretty even. And then as we get older, women are more likely to read it online than men. And I suppose that has more to do with the demographics of what, older men and women are going to be on the computer at all. So what we're finding is it's probably a little less than that. It's probably around 60% of our readers are female and the other 40%. But what really helped us and was, really reinforcing was to see that the groups that we were not reaching very well before, which would be that group between kind of 18 to 45, those are actually kind of the core of our readership now. So it's happening digitally, probably happening on a smartphone, but we're really beginning to do a good job of connecting with those who are, in that really important age group for us that can kind of entering into ecclesial leadership, and all the way through probably 45 to 50. So we're really grateful for that the reach has seemed to penetrate those age groups. We'd like to think it has a lot to do with technology, but it also has a lot to do, we think, with the content. That we're trying to make content that people can say, yeah, that's an issue I've been dealing with. I'm glad to see an article on that.
Yeah, right. That's fantastic. Um, Again, I asked before, but I just want to get it clear. So, tidings.org, you've got the socials. Do you have an app as well?
Yes, we have a Tidings app,
Right.
which can be downloaded.
You can get all the material on that Tidings app.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, that's fantastic. And any thoughts about the future? Do you have any plans that are yet to see the light of day?
I think first of all, there's some things we've tried out that haven't really gone as well as I would like, and I hate to tell you, but audio hasn't been as big of a deal for us as we had hoped. Um,
Okay.
we've had all of let me if I could backtrack here. One of the big things that we've been involved with in the last 2 or 3 years has been books. We had a
Yes.
kind
Right.
of a spotty track record when it came to the production of books. But Brother Sean Moynihan took that area over 2 or 3 years ago and brought in some new processes for it. And so we have really had, I think we had like 12 books in a year, which is a pretty good size of new launches like that. Um, they're all printed by demand on Amazon. So we really work heavily with Amazon so that a book can be made available pretty much anywhere Amazon is the same time frame. Uh, but we also were confronted with this one brother wrote me and he said, it's really nice to hear about all these books. This brother was in Africa, he was in Nigeria. And he said, it's really nice to see all these books that are available, but we can't read them. We can't
Right.
afford to buy these. And so what we decided was that all of our books, you can buy a book on Amazon or you can download it for free as a PDF. And so all of our books have been made available. Now, they're all in English.
Yeah.
So that doesn't really solve all the problems, but we've really made some great progress under Sean by doing that. When I look at the future of what I think the tidings should be about, uh, I think some of the technology will lead us to getting more away from a monthly magazine and more like a regular website that sends out material. So if you think of it, the major websites that we have that people go to, they're producing new content regularly and sending it out rather than sending a block of material out.
Right.
So I think that may be the direction down the road that we would be heading. And whether we'll even have a monthly magazine per se, I don't know. But that may be years down the road.
Very exciting.
Thank you.
Everything you've described is really exciting. How can people that are listening help?
Well, thanks for asking that. I think it's an opportunity we'd love to have more readership, certainly around the world. We invite you to subscribe. Uh, However, we also really would like to have more articles from around the world. And while we want those articles to be from places like, Australia, New Zealand, and Canada, and the UK, and so forth, we also want them from Manila and from places in Africa. We want to have more and more brothers and sisters from around the world submitting content to us so that we can have truly a feel of a more global community.
Mm.
What we really want our readers to know here in North America is that sometimes we look in our own communities and we don't see a lot of response, frankly, to our preaching efforts. But what we all need to know is that God is very active in the world. He's calling not tens, he's calling hundreds, thousands of people to be part of this community. And we should all know about that and be encouraged by it. And we should learn more and more about these new brothers and sisters that are joining us in this walk toward the kingdom.
That's a fantastic place to end, Dave. Really appreciate your comments, and thanks for joining Wilderness Conversations.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephen.